Hello. Okay, so this is the practice, or this is the tutorial for the practice of the speed test. Again, the speed test is coming up here now real quickly upon us, and it's going to be here in week 10. It's going to be given on week 10. And like I said, I don't want you guys to go into the test cold, so I thought maybe I'd create this tutorial, and that way you can always go back to refer back to it. So the purpose of the speed test is for the students to gain confidence in being able to perform under pressure if asked to during an interview. Now, the speed test is a template for civil, obviously, but what I want you to do is use that as a template for other software, specifically the software that you're going to specialize in, whether that be in Revit or whether that be in Inventor, whatever. But what I'd like you to do is, if you were going to specialize in Revit, to pull a Revit file out and maybe kind of try to time yourself in doing a project or doing a little whatever. But what the employer wants to do is he wants to know whether you're competent on the performance of your of your craft. So that's kind of the end to this whole test. Okay, again, I don't want you to go in cold. I want you to have confidence as you go into this test, and really basically don't fear it. Remember what I said, you won't fail the test, but the grade that you get from the speed test might bump your grade up. So if you don't have a very good grade, this might help you get over the hump there. Okay, so as you can tell, I have a file open here with some hard break lines. This is very similar to what you're going to get from me. Now, depending on what your prospective employer gives you, who knows what he's going to give you, but it should contain some file with maybe some points, or maybe with these hard break lines. And again, let me explain what these hard break lines. These hard break lines are 3D polylines basically that exist in space, and they have different 3D coordinate values at their vertices. So let me hover over this piece here, and it says it's a vertex at vertex remove. But if you look down here as I hover over one of the vertexes right here in this corner, note that an elevation comes up. So I have the northing, or I'm sorry, the easting of 18,127.81, and then the easting is going to be 929 point. These letters are small, so I'm having trouble reading them. Okay, but right at the tail end there's an elevation of 805.9790. And if you look at one of the other vertices, the elevation changes along with the other northing and easting. So that's kind of the proof to let you know that these polylines are in 3D space. Okay, so let's start. Let's say you're at the interview and you're asked to perform, and you open, and this is a drawing your employer gives you. You open it up. First thing you need to do is figure out what are the components that you have, and what is it that you have to do in order to get these components into a DTM surface. Okay, so what I tend to normally do is I tend to highlight one of these pieces here, whatever, and I can go ahead and hit Control 1, and up comes this property dialog box. This tells me up here on the top that I have a 3D polyline, so I'm pretty satisfied with that. And my assumption is that everything else is a 3D polyline, but I'll check that. I'll pick something else here. Control 1 brings up the properties menu here, and I notice I picked up one of the points. Okay, so that's kind of good. I'm going to hit Control 1 again, and it's a point. Okay, so I'm going to escape. I'm going to pick one of these white lines out here. There we go, and that's a 3D polyline. So I'm pretty satisfied that all these lines, whether they're white or whatever color, are 3D polylines. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and proceed. Now don't forget that in order to create the corridor, we have to go through the whole process of creating a surface, creating an alignment, taking a profile from the surface, then creating a profile alignment, which is the new, creating an assembly, and then creating the corridor. Okay, so I'm going to take you through all those steps. All right, so here we go. So now I know that I have 3D polylines and points. So what I want to do is go to the prospector, and I want to go to surfaces. Now remember what I always say, if in doubt, right click out. I want to create a surface, and for the speed test you don't necessarily have to name this. You can just go ahead and accept, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that as well. Just say OK, and it gives you the next numerical value of whatever the surface is. So I can have like surface 1, surface 2, whatever. It just keeps on adding the number onto the prefix of surface. Okay, so in order to, that just creates a container for my surface. Now I need to add the data so that the computer can crunch the numbers. So the first thing I know I have are these break lines. So I select break lines, and if in doubt, right click out, and I want to add. I can put a description in here. These are standard type break lines. I don't want any of this other jazz, so I say OK. Swoop all these, and then hit return. I have a ton of errors. I don't know why, but anyway, I'm going to kill this. And just by the fact that I have this little yellow ring around here indicates that I have created a surface. Okay, so now I need to now incorporate these points. So since they're not Kogo points, since these points were not generated by going point, create points, miscellaneous, and using any of these, since they're an AutoCAD point, then I need to go to the drawing objects here, right click, and then I want to add. And I have a whole myriad of different type of AutoCAD objects I can use, but since I know they're points, I'm just going to go ahead and select that one. I say OK, and I swoop everything. Civil 3D is smart enough to know that it has to filter out the hard break lines that are originally used and just keep the points. So I go ahead and hit return, and you notice that this area up here kind of puffed out. Okay, so now the surface has been created. Now remember that in order to change the way it looks, I have to change its style. Okay, but I'm not going to change the style to a different style. I just want to edit the style here and bring up the triangles, the actual tin itself. So I go to Surface Properties, I go to Information, and notice here under the surface style I have a standard. That's the only thing I have. Okay, so I go to this button here and I edit it, and I can turn the triangles on. I hit Apply, OK, OK, and all of a sudden my triangulation's there. Now this was an unnecessary step. You're not going to be asked to do this in the test, but if you did do it, it's okay. I might give you a little extra credit, a little extra time for being able to bring up the triangles. Okay, so now the next step is to create. You need to create an alignment. These off here. I can select any part of the surface, go to Surface Properties, go back to the Edit here. I'm just going to turn that off under the display. Okay, so triangles off. Say Apply. It's OK, OK, and they should go off. There we go. Okay, so with regards to the alignment, I come up here to the alignment. I create an alignment by layout, okay, and up comes this little window, and I just go ahead, and I'm just not going to call it anything specific, and forget about the site, the alignment style, and well, we only have the one, and the layer, just ignore the layer as well, let it go onto layer 0, okay, and say OK. Up comes this little window here, if you remember, and I want to use the tangent with curves. Okay, now part of the test is just creating an alignment of anything, so I'm going to go from here to here and then to there. Okay, that's where my alignment's going to go, and I say OK. Once I'm completed that, I want to zoom in there to see what I have. Okay, so that's where my alignment's going to run. Next step is to create the profile. So what you can do, since you only have one alignment, you can go directly to Profile, go to Profiles, and you can go Profiles from Surface, and here comes this window, and I think you're pretty familiar with it. So what I want you to do then is, since we only have the one surface 1, just go ahead and add it so it places this surface down in here. Okay, and then you're good to go. So all you need to do is say draw in profile view and answer a series of questions. And all you need to do is just keep on going next, 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 next. Eventually you're going to see a create profile view. Next, and then create profile view. Okay, now this is going to ask you, AutoCAD's asking you where to place the profile container. So I want you to place it out here in the open somewhere. So I'm going to use the invisible command, zoom dynamic. Go out here, and then that's a transparent command is what I meant to say. Okay, so I place it out here. Okay, so this is the profile of the surface. So this is the surface profile, that white one. Now we need to create a profile by layout. So I want to go in here, profile by layout, and now the computer's asking me which profile do I want to create it in, which container do I want to create it in. And let's see, I'll select that one. I'm not going to name the profile, but I'm going to say OK. And again, up comes this little window, similar to the one we used to create the alignment. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and use the draw tangents with curves. Move that out of the way, and I'm just going to draw anything. Okay, kind of like that. Maybe one there, maybe one here, and then back up. Okay? All right. Okay, so here's my profile now. Now, unfortunately, it's white as well. Okay, and I haven't changed any of the styles, and that's why it kind of looks funky. Okay, but if I had taken the time to fix some of the styles of the labels, we would have it would have looked nicer and been a little less confusing. But if we look at this, if we look at the name of this profile, we can hit the Control 1. We notice that its name is Layout 2. Not quite sure why it's Layout 2. Okay, but if I escape and then pick the profile from the existing surface, all it says here is a vertical alignment line label group. Okay, well, here it says it's surface 1. Okay, so maybe that's the way to remember this, is that your layout surface is layout 2 surface, and the existing is surface number 1. Okay, so now we're halfway there. Now we have to create a template. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close this box out, and I'm going to come over here to my Home tab, and remember that everything we've been able to create up to this point, we can either get at this point at this drop-down menu, or we can get it by right-clicking some of these items here, like the surface. But for the template, the assembly, it's a little more difficult. We have to remember that we got to get this from the Tools palette. Okay, so I can go here, and remember what I mentioned to you is that you can go ahead and use one of these ready-made assemblies, or you can construct one yourself. So I'm just going to go ahead and construct one from scratch. Okay, so let me go ahead and let me keep that here. Okay, so what I want to do now for my assembly, I want to go to corridors and create an assembly, because the assemblies are obviously related to the corridors, so you'll find them in that menu. Let me show you where you might find them in another menu. Let's see. Everything's so scrunched now I can't tell where's what. Let's see. Profile, draw, modify. You know what? I can't find it real quick. If my window was expanded, I need to have a small window like this so that I can record efficiently. So all these aren't expanded. But nevertheless, you can go get it right here. Off the corridor, create assembly. And I'm not going to name the assembly, and I'm just going to pop it in a free area here. Okay, so here's my baseline. And I'm going to zoom in on that because I need to get to that point of intersection, or the baseline point. And now I'm going to go back to the tools palette, and I'm just going to go to the basic. I'm going to get me a basic lane, go here, okay, close that out, and then hit escape. If not, you're going to be putting in basic lanes like forever. I'm going to go get me a curb and gutter, put it on the end there, okay, and then I'm going to go get me some sidewalk, put it right there, and then I'm going to go get me I'm sorry, I should have told you, right, the basic side slope cut ditch, okay. I'm going to come over here and put that in there, okay. So that's it, okay. Now I just want to note something, that everything is built up here on the right hand side, and that is because if I pick the curb and gutter again, note right here that the side that I'm creating is right. I can change that to left and create it on the left hand side. I want to show you a trick, okay. Forget that. Okay, what I want to do is I want to zoom dynamics, zoom dynamic, okay. And all you need to do to get the left hand version of this is just swoop everything, right click, and you can't see it, but down here on the bottom there's a command to mirror, and I want to use, and if I'm reading my prompt, it says select the marker point within the assembly there, and now I have my left hand view. Okay, so now I have everything I need to create my corridor. I'm sorry, my magic fingers aren't working. So now I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to now invoke the command for the corridor. I go to corridor, create a simple corridor, and I'm not going to bother with the name again. And it's asking me for the baseline alignment. I can select that one, or I can hit return and select from a list. And okay, well, since I selected the alignment, I went straight to profile. I then hit return so that I can select the profile from the list, okay? And I don't want surface 1, I want layout 2. Say okay. Now it's prompting me for the assembly. I go ahead and hit enter for the list, and since I only have one assembly, I hit okay. Here's an important part. You need to tuck these cut and fill lines on the wings here into the existing surface. So look at the surface targets here, hit click set for all, and you want to tie those into surface 1. Say okay here, and it's cooking. Got some errors. If you want to clear the errors, clear all events, kill that, and now my corridor's been built and the stopwatch clock stops. You inform me at one time you finish your corridor, and I will mark the time. Okay, it's kind of, obviously it's a race. Okay, so I think this whole tutorial didn't take more than maybe 15 minutes. So you should be able, and I was talking and taking my time, so you should be able to finish this with plenty of time. But again, that's if you study and you go through this tutorial. Okay, so anyway, that's the speed test, and I wish everybody luck, but don't put any pressure on yourselves. You know, like I said, use this as a template for your other software. You know, test yourselves on Revit and on Inventor, everything else, and it'll make you a better draftsperson and designer. Okay, that's it for me. That's the end of this tutorial.